Okay, so far we have discussed data types that contain only a single value. There are also what we call derived types that stores multiple values in a single variable. One of these derived types is arrays. Array is defined with the property as follows. An array is a collection of multiple values called elements. Array elements should be of the same data type. They cannot be mixed. The number of elements is fixed as a declaration cannot be changed. Okay? Array elements are stored in contiguous blocks of memory. Okay. Introducing STL arrays. In the presentation, we will introduce array type provided by the C++ standard template library, STL, which is the STL Arrays. STL Array is a wrapper class to the C-style array which includes a built-in methods making it easier to handle than the C-style arrays. The major difference between the C-style STL array is the way they are declared. The C-style array is declared by providing a type followed by the number of elements inside in square brackets. The STL array is declared by invoking the array class followed by the type of numbers of elements in pointed brackets, and lastly the variable name. As you can see, they both can be initialized using uniform initialization. That we have discussed before. However, since STL arrays are not part of the original C language, you have to include the array class header, include array, and you have to specify the array class is inside the std namespace. Okay? If you have to, it is good to note that C++ committee has promoted STL arrays for years now without much success. C-style array is still quite popular. If programmers want to use STL, they go for the vector type, class type instead of the STL array, primarily because vector is a dynamic array. Okay, we will discuss about the vector in part 2. Okay. Assessing elements of array. In order to access the elements, you have to know its index. Index is the position of the elements in the cell. You have to remember that arrays is zero base. That means the nth element is the index n-1. Okay, so we will have an example. If we declare an array of integers from 1 to 10, so we will highlight it. This array from 1 to 10. Okay. To access the element, we use the square bracket operator. Okay. With the index number, with the index number. Okay, this index number inside the square brackets. But remember that sorry for that. Remember that arrays are zero base. So to access the 7th element, okay, the index should be in index 6 as we see here. We can also use the bracket operator to modify an element. So here we first we set the 8th value to 25. Remember that it's zero base, so the 8th element is index 7. We set it to 25 and then we assign it again. Okay, we assign it again. We print it. It becomes 25. Okay. Then we assign it again to the element, to the 0th element, which is the first element 1 plus 100. So we can reassign it again. and then when we print it, sure enough we have 101. Okay. Traversing and iterating arrays. We can use all the loop types that we discussed to traverse array. Here we use an imperative for loop. Okay, we use imperative for loop. And we also use the range-based for loop. Okay. Okay. Notice that in the range-based for loop is much clearer, but using the imperative for loop, we are able to change the values of the array elements. So it's easier to use this, but we cannot change the value inside. But if we use the imperative for loop, we can change the value of the elements inside an array. Okay, the type of array that we're discussing so far is one-dimensional. Okay, we can think of a one-dimensional array as the row in an Excel worksheet. So if we have an Excel worksheet, we can say that this is a one-dimensional array. Okay, the whole row. Okay. A two-dimensional array would be one worksheet, okay, this worksheet, but with both these rows, and columns, okay, column A, B, C, okay. So we can think of a two-dimensional array as one worksheet, okay. A three-dimensional array will be like the whole workbook, this book 1, this whole workbook, with different sheets, 1, 2, 3 sheets, and each sheet has its own rows and columns. Okay, so let's erase that. Now a four-dimensional array would be like a whole spreadsheet project. For example, we have a spreadsheet project with many workbooks inside. Each has many sheets and many rows and columns. Okay, higher dimensional array is also possible, but it is not recommended because it's a lot of memory on the computer. Okay. Now we show here that we declare a two-dimensional array, which is 10. Let me highlight it. Okay. 10 by 15 in size. 10 by 15. Okay, two-dimensional array. So it becomes a two-dimensional array of 10 by 15, 10 rows at 10 columns and 15 rows. Okay. And how to iterate through the elements. Okay. Now we iterate using the for loop. Okay. And we can also iterate using the for each loop, the range-based for loop. Okay. So here in the for loop, in the ordinary for loop, we can assign the size, the value of each element, and in the range-based for loop, we can print it up. So that's all there is for multidimensional arrays. Okay, so let's go to the next topic. Okay, being an STL class, STL array has advantages of having some built-in methods. Here are some of the useful methods. The at method is similar to the square brackets operator, but you cannot mutate an element. However, it's safe because it will throw an error if you try to access the index, which is greater than or equal to the size of the array. If we use the square brackets, if we try to, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. If we try to put in square bracket the position 5 or even 6, it will not throw an error but will read the element, the value that is beyond the array. So this is not safe because we may be able to change it with the square brackets, okay? But here, aside from we cannot change it, it will throw an error if we try to put here 5 or 6, okay? The size method. The size method just gives us the size. So if we put size here, it will output 5, okay? The fill method. The fill method, okay, assigns its input to all elements of the array. So for example here, we assign 100 element by using the 111 to all the elements using array fill. So when we try to print it, it becomes all 111. Empty method. Empty method is a Boolean function or method that tests if the array is empty or not. If the array is empty, it returns true. If the array is it contains a value, it retains false, okay? Front returns the value of the first element, while back returns the value of the last element. There are other methods available for the array class, but these are the most commonly used.